when I say hell gigs, are there any bad shows that come to your mind immediately? Because I have heard secondhand of a show that you were on that I want to wait till later to bring up, and I'm curious to see where it ranks in your memory of bad shows.
Oh, wow. I mean, I think I've had so many bad shows that I don't even know which one you're talking about.
Okay.
But yeah, I was thinking about it earlier, and yeah, I mean, I don't think we have enough time on this podcast to cover all of the bad shows, but yeah, I think some of the ones that come to mind. There's one in a library. There's a few I talk about in my album, but some of those were like doing a show in a library, doing a show at someone's house for like just a bachelorette party, um, doing a show where I got replaced halfway through the show. My first time, like one of my first times hosting at a comedy club. Um,
How does that even happen? So you're on stage, I guess. So feel free to take me through that one.
yeah, for sure. Well, it actually happened to me twice. I think this was both in like around January 2010. I was like in my maybe like sophomore year of college, and on a college break, I was like I would do comedy in my hometown in Louisville. So I think I like got hired there to like my first ever like hosting gig, or one of my first at like the Louisville Improv. And I think I was just like not that high energy and whatever. And after the first night, they like asked me to not come back for the rest of the night. So it would have been like Thursday through Sunday or something like that. And I
Right.
got fired like after the first night, and I was like, oh, that's all right. This was probably just a one time thing. And then I like moved to Chicago for like part of college to take some classes and stuff there. And like shortly, I think like later that month, I got booked to like host at this comedy club in the suburbs there, Riddle's Comedy Club.
Hmm.
And I think I was supposed to host again like Thursday through Saturday or Sunday, and I think they like lit me early on like my host set, and I think it was another situation where I was like low energy. I didn't really know how to like necessarily warm up a crowd. At the time, I was just like used to just doing my jokes, and so like after the opening of the show, um, they're like, "Hey, we're just gonna like pay you for tonight," and then there's like this other comedian that was just like, "Hang out here. We're just gonna have him go up like after the feature and like bring up the headliner and close out the show and stuff."
Oh
So
my God.
uh, so so I got replaced like 6 or 7 minutes into the show, depending on when they lit me exactly. They lit me early, so um, it was like I didn't. It was the first time I got fired, like probably minutes into a job, you know. But but yeah, and so I ended up like I think years later I was like headlining at the club, and I mentioned this on the album, but the owner was like, I thought it was so cool you stuck around to watch the rest of the show even though you got fired because you wanted to like study comedy and get better. And I was like, actually, I really wanted to leave, but like the feature comedian was my ride home, so I just like had to stay there for the rest of the show.
Oh my God, that is brutal. Not only do you have to, now you're stuck there, but the fact that you have to watch somebody else do your job is
Yeah, I had to watch my
horrible.
replacement take over my job in real time and watch the rest of it.
That's
Uh,
what people, that's what, like, I think that's the only time we'll ever feel close to people in like a blue collar industry when they worry about like automation taking their jobs. I think that's it. You were replaced in real time, and you were just like that. You were unemployed. Uh,
it was
God,
kind of the
that's
opposite of automation taking over because I probably sounded too much like a robot, which is why they replaced me. So
they were like, we need to humanize this a little bit.
yeah.
We've let AI take over too much. Man, that's insane. So when you went back there, was there any like bad feelings towards the people, or they were okay?
Um,
You were okay.
I think I was just like so desperate to like do comedy anywhere. Like I think after that happened, I just like kept trying to get booked anywhere I could, including there. Like, I think one time I went back and I was like, I think I was, I'd been doing comedy a little longer at that point, and I think I like told him that I had started doing it full time, and I think the owner was like, I find that hard to believe. And then and I was like, all right, I guess this isn't gonna work out. But then I think a little bit after, I think after he saw me on like America's Got Talent or something, and he's like, oh, that was great. You're so funny now, and blah blah. And it was like very
And
confusing.
that's insane because do you think, I mean, obviously you developed as a comic, but like how much difference do you think there was between your act and you as a comic from the time he saw you to the time he saw you on America's Got Talent? Like, would you think there
Not
was a
much.
big
I would
difference?
say minimal. I mean, it was probably like the same jokes that they fired me. Like, I was probably doing the same jokes when I got fired that I was doing on America's Got Talent in 2012. So yeah, I mean, I don't think, I think, I don't know. Someone said once that like bookers aren't talent watchers; they're heat seekers. So I think they just like see you have some kind of credibility somewhere, and so that means something to some people. But yeah, I don't know. A lot of, yeah, I think comedy, you can definitely get better at it over time, but it's very like, in that case, it was, I don't think it was like I had gotten way better or something. I think I just kind of it was kind of a tough situation the first time, and it was just, a quicker than usual response in terms of fire me. So I don't know.
Right, right. That's so you've been on America's Got Talent, you've done Wild and Out, and you're, a touring comic. From, every comic has bad shows, but you've also been in situations where you've been on shows. Have you ever had any bad shows? Where you're like, what am I doing here?
Oh yeah. You mean bad shows um like a particular kind of show you are you talking about, or?
Yeah, I guess like when you were on America's Got Talent or Wild and Out, like were there any moments where
Oh
you're like, I think I just bombed, or this is like, or where you go out there and you go, how am I supposed to perform in this situation?
yeah,
You
absolutely.
know?
Actually, my last time on America's Got Talent, I felt like I bombed super badly, and I think in my head, I definitely, it was probably even worse than it actually was. But I was like really depressed after, and I think I did have to follow, like, there's like a bird that went on before me, and it was like flying through the audience and like flying through these hoops like over the audience's head and all this stuff. And so it wasn't like they weren't really warmed up for comedy. They were like, oh wow, we just saw this creature flying around doing tricks. That's pretty. And then I had to like try to follow that. And I think I just like got in my head a little and like rushed through the set. And so I wasn't. I like actually like thought about quitting comedy after that. Like, I felt like I'd done so badly, and then like everyone would just always judge me based on this one set. And I ended up like taking like probably like a couple of weeks or more off of stand up, and just, I think I was just like drinking a lot and like binge watching Mad Men on Netflix and stuff, and like just being like, oh, my life is over. I was 23, but I was like, this was like my only chance, because I didn't have really a lot of perspective in terms of like, that was the only opportunity I thought I'd ever have to like do TV or to be seen by that many people, which it might actually still be. I mean, it was a lot of people watching, I guess, but in my head that meant it was like, oh, I have to like quit comedy now because that was so embarrassing. So
Right, right. It's so funny because I've asked this question to other comics. I have also asked myself the question of like, have you had any shows where you've wanted to quit? And I would say for the most part, every comic I've talked to, it hasn't been as high pressure as being on America's Got Talent. So like I know how I feel when I want to quit comedy after a bad bar show. If I get on the wrong subway after a bad show, I think about quitting comedy and leaving New York forever. I can't imagine feeling like you bombed on national television and then thinking like, well, that was it. So you go through those couple weeks, and then what sort of sparks you to come out and start doing stand up again?
that's a good question. I mean, I think someone like booked to be on a show that I did, and like I did okay and stuff. But I mean, I think it was partly just realizing like I didn't really. It was like I didn't really have another job I was like that excited about and stuff. And I did actually technically start doing comedy full time ever since America's Got Talent. I just had like at the time I had like super low rent in Chicago and low expenses where I just eat these like $1 microwavable pizzas for like every meal and stuff. And I'm still really into comedy. So yeah, I think I just kind of let it get to me a little too much, but I think I gradually probably just started doing more gigs and also open mics and stuff. And then I think a little after that, I did um, get the news that I might get to audition for Wild and Out, and so then that was like definitely another thing I got excited about that I wanted to like work towards since I felt like I had no other things going on at the time, especially. So um, and I got like super into like preparing for that, and I think that definitely motivated me a lot. But but yeah, I think it was just a gradual process, and yeah, I'm hoping that now I am able to bounce back quicker from like a tough show or something. But I don't know. At the time, I definitely did not know how to do that.
Yeah, I mean it's still difficult. And before we go further into sort of like the post-bomb routine and stuff, what I don't think a lot of people understand is on shows like America's Got Talent, you said it best, where sometimes you're following a bird flying through the audience.
Mhm.
So, and what did you do? A minute and a half?
Yeah, each round was a minute and a half. That was my fourth round on the show, and I might have technically had like half an hour or an hour of material at the time, but to get through each round, I was kind of burning through like my best one-liners, which would probably normally be part of like longer bits. So I was like kind of like, you know, like chopping up my act and just pulling like the strongest line from certain bits just to try to get through to the next round. So I think by that point, it probably wasn't like my best material, but I think the biggest issue was that I might have even gotten a little overconfident I was like running it in New York that week on like these really great shows. And then when I did the actual taping, it was in Newark, New Jersey, and it was just a crowd that wasn't like necessarily stand-up comedy savvy, and I think it just threw me a little bit when the first joke didn't hit how I wanted, and then I just like couldn't really be in the moment as much as I wanted to. So it was definitely a learning experience. But I don't know. Yeah, I think I was in a little over my head, but it in some ways it was nice because I learned from it. I had some good experiences on some of the other rounds, and then it did actually lead to like doing comedy full time since then, and other things like Wild and Out for a few seasons. So it was definitely a very like bittersweet experience, I guess, overall. But yeah,
It's
um,
it's it's interesting, like the in the moment you go, this is it, I'm done, like there's no recovering. And now with perspective you can go, I've actually learned something from it. And that seems to be all of just time. Like time is the only thing you can do to sort of save yourself in this business. It's like let time take its course. Like you'll feel better with time, you'll get better with time, you may feel worse in time, but you will also eventually get better from that feeling of being worse. Like do you think that you have that perspective now? Like if you go to a show and you don't do as well as you want to, where you go, well, I know that's not it. Like I know there's more coming.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've had so many tough shows, and yeah, I think I do tend to like probably bounce back quicker. I mean, I think I get better at dealing with whatever situation, but when there is like a tough situation, I can also like have more perspective now if it's, especially if there is an element that was out of my control. And I definitely am disappointed if I like don't do as well as I want in the given circumstances, but there are some situations where it's just I know it's not set up well, and I think kind of like not get like too thrown off by that or that kind of thing. But yeah, like I remember like I was talking about my first time, I think, emceeing. And then, I mean, I also like, I think my first time featuring, it was like on the road somewhere, maybe in Michigan. And like, it was, I think it was like my first ever feature gig, maybe, or one of my first. And it was like in like a restaurant where there were like, I think 6 people at tables like spread out. It was like as if it would have been like completely COVID safe, but it was before COVID. It was like very spread out. I don't think they were there to see like comedy. It was in like probably 2012 or something. And I think like the owner had like these really high expectations for what the show was going to be, and so he like didn't think I was doing well. I think there were like actually 2 shows, and both of them like really shouldn't have happened. Like, it was just people in a restaurant that weren't there to see comedy. And so afterwards in the office, the owner was like, he was like threatening to not pay me, but then he also was like trying to convince me to like quit comedy. And he's like, look, like this just isn't for you. Like, he's like, you're a good looking guy. There's so many other things you can do. And I was like, wow, no one said that I was good looking before. That's kind of nice, I guess. But he literally like was talking to me for like an hour about like, I was like, yeah, like I get this isn't your thing, like you're not into my comedy, but like contractually, like I think I'm supposed to get paid this amount for the show or whatever. And yeah, it was just very very strange. So yeah, so I think I had some weird experiences like that early on where I kind of just got used to like rejection is kind of sometimes happen, and you can kind of hopefully just move on from it after that. But and then I think I got a lot better after those experiences hopefully as well, because those probably were situations where I was like in over my head. So it's yeah, I don't know, it's like a weird thing where it's like you want to be prepared for every situation, but I think I've also like learned a lot from those situations where I was like thrown into the deep end. Like my first time, I think around that year, also like doing an hour for this company. I think it was like a a company's like Christmas party or something in like the back room of a steakhouse, and like it was my
Mm-hmm.
first time doing an hour. And they like booked me from some like comedy like or gig website, and I'm sure it like probably wasn't that good, but I was like just in that case I was just happy that I had like I'd never done that long of a set before, so I think they were probably like disappointed, but it like gave me so much confidence of just doing an hour. It was kind of like in like Silver Linings Playbook, where they're really excited that they reached a certain score, even if it was like not a good score technically and stuff. And
Right.
so, and I think, I don't know, I think all that stuff like just makes you better, and you're so much more prepared for the next one, because it's, I mean, like everyone says, it's not like an instrument or something where you have to like practice those things in front of people. So it's like failure is just, I guess, a regular part of doing comedy, obviously. So yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's if there were like accountants that went to work and failed this much at their job, they wouldn't have a job. And
Yeah.
they would be like, I shouldn't be an accountant. But if you're a comic, it's just part of your day-to-day life. It's crazy. I want to ask you about this show that I heard from another guest I had on the podcast. It was Carmen Legala.
Okay.
And she said because I was asking like craziest shows and stuff. She said that you and a few other comics and her went out to Long Island, I believe, to do a show at some bar restaurant.
Yeah.
And there was a woman in the audience, maybe with her daughter, who didn't really appreciate your comedy. And and Carmen said she got a little upset, and Carmen then threatened to fight her maybe and yelled at her while you were on stage. So I heard Carmen's side of the story. I would love to hear your side of that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, yeah, I do remember that. It's funny because like I was thinking of so many stories today, and that didn't even occur to me, that one, because I think just because there've been so many weird, terrible show stories that have kind of accumulated. But yeah, I think I vaguely remember that it was in like Long Island. I don't know if it was Smithtown or where. It was like in this little dive bar somewhere in Long Island. And yeah, I think I went. There were like a few other comedians on the show, including Carmen, and I think I was like headlining and doing a longer set at the end. And there wasn't really a separation from like the bar area where like I guess locals would normally be in like the show. So I think it was just kind of one of those situations where like this lady I think that didn't like my set was maybe like a regular at the bar and was like super drunk and stuff. And yeah, I think she was just talking a lot during the show, and I think I just like tried to like do crowd work, kind of making fun of her and stuff. Afterward, yeah, I think like Carmen did want to fight her. I think my girlfriend at the time was there and actually kind of scared her afterwards because she was just like told the lady to stop and stuff when we were leaving. But but yeah, I don't know. It was I remember that. But yeah, I feel like I've had so many like worse shows than that I don't really like think about that show a lot. Like I did the like I've done shows where there's like people booing me and stuff like that. And so compared to that, it's like when like a whole audience is also like really not into my stuff, I think that's like a much that's like sticks with me longer than like if it's one heckler and like the rest of the people are on your side. I feel like that I almost like yeah, I don't even like think about it after, or it doesn't like I feel like it's usually I'm more able to handle it. But yeah, I'm thinking of this other show now where I was doing a show that was like on a yacht that like went to like the Statue of Liberty and back, and like I think the comedy show was part of it, but it was billed as like I think people were charged more for like they just wanted to go on this like boat ride, and it was mostly like a dance party.
Oh my god.
Um, but there was like a lot of food and dancing. It was like really fun, and there were no chairs. I should mention it was basically like we went on this whole like 3 hour more cruise, and then I think it had already docked again, and then they just like turned off the music, like, and they were like, all right, we're gonna do some comedy, and everyone was just like upset that the music was off, and so everyone was just like talking and standing there like on what was a dance floor, and then there were like comedians doing jokes, and I think there were like people booing, and like then I started like trying to tell jokes, and there was this one guy that would like boo at me, and he would like there were no chairs, so he would just like jog towards me while booing, and then he would just like do another lap and like do that again,
Oh
and
my god.
I just like tried to do what I could with it until I got the light, and then I got paid and left, but yeah, I've done a few shows that were like where the whole crowd was like just not happy that I was doing comedy.
When
And
you are finished on a show on a yacht, were you docked? Were you able to leave, or did you have to wait until the boat got back?
I think in this case it was already docked at that point. For some
Oh,
reason they
good.
started the show like when the cruise was already over. I don't know why the show was happening because like no one wanted it to happen, but I guess we still got paid. I was very bizarre, but other than that, I mean, it was like the cruise part was fun. I don't know. It was yeah.
Why is it that people think that comedy is good for like a party? Like where you can shut down the fun, especially if it's music and dancing and drinking, you go, stop what you're doing and be quiet. That's what we need you to do. Who would think that's a good idea?
Um
But it happens
yeah,
all
I
the
don't know.
time.
I don't know that, but that does happen sometimes. And yeah, I've done like comedy on some cruises that can be tough too because like people are maybe there for the cruise stuff. Um like on a week long, or I would think I was on it for a month, but it was like a week long cruise, and that was tough because I would like do comedy and then like the same people would come back to shows and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of places that are not great for comedy, and I think I
Yeah.
did another show actually recently with Carmen that was like in a park, and there was this guy just kind of ranting, like disrupting the show. And then I think people were playing volleyball, and like he caught their volleyball, so he was like both disrupting our comedy show and their volleyball game at the same time, and he was just like yelling. I think that we were all the crowd and the comedian on stage were like possessed by demons and all this stuff. And I actually wish he'd like heckled during my set because I had like hadn't prepared a lot of stuff for that day. But yeah, now there's like so many really weird shows, even weirder shows now, I think, with like Zoom and outdoor shows and things like that. So yeah, I don't know.
It's kind of nice though that you've had a lot of experiences with difficult rooms and difficult situations, because when you go and perform on a rooftop or on Zoom, it's it's not that bad. You know, it's like, okay, I mean, this isn't the
Yeah.
worst gig I've ever had, you know?
Yeah, I had someone one time, I was doing like an outdoor concert show, like I don't know how long ago, but it was before the pandemic and stuff. And I think I mentioned it briefly on the album, but yeah, basically it was like people were there to see like musical, like a bigger musical act and stuff like that. And I was kind of a last minute replacement for this other comedian that's like really high energy and musical and stuff. And I think everyone just like really wanted to see the headliner and stuff. And they were like, it was set up like a outdoor, like standing up concert and stuff. And like someone like threw an apple onto the stage and stuff like that. And like
Oh
people were
my
like
God.
chanting, like wanting to see this other performer. And so it was like one of those things where like stand up like shouldn't have probably been there, but I was like getting paid. So it was like, I don't know. I guess that is a nice thing about Zoom is that like you can never. It's not like you're really in like ever in physical danger. I don't think that happens a lot in general anyway. But it's
Right.
not like like an audience member could like try to beat you up through the Zoom
I
or.
just I want I'm glad you said that about physical danger, because I'm curious. I just did a show in Raleigh, North Carolina a couple weeks ago, and like the last show of the weekend, somebody in the audience tried to get into the green room to fight all of the comedians. Um,
Uh,
you know, it was like a drunk guy, second date, heckled, got made fun of, and then at the end, he wanted to not fight one of us, but all of us at once. He wanted to fight. Have you ever been in a situation where you were like, I have to get out of here right now, or someone's gonna hurt me?
um, that's a good question. I think I have had, like I mentioned, I've probably had a couple other situations where I was like getting booed and stuff, although I didn't necessarily feel like I was in physical danger. I yeah, I don't know. I've done a lot of shows with like a lot of hecklers or crowds that weren't into me, but I don't know if I've ever felt like, other than someone throwing that thing on the stage. Yeah, in general, I haven't really felt like I was in that much danger most of the time, and I guess I've gotten lucky in that sense. But yeah, I mean, I think that's like one of the things I like about comedy is that it's usually pretty danger free, I guess. And a lot of comedy is about like diffusing tension, and especially I guess the stuff I do is probably not that like controversial usually, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I am really curious why this guy wanted to fight everyone and how you got out of that situation.
Yeah, we just waited. I think he was definitely drunk, and he kept talking during the show, and
Hmm.
his date was talking a lot. She was obviously drunk too, and just
Yeah.
everybody sort of had a line or two for them, and
Yeah.
made fun of them. And then they asked them to be quiet, and then they asked them to leave, and they paid their tab, and they stepped out of the room. But then they came back when the show was over to try to get the guy came back. He wanted to get into the green room,
Yeah.
and so we were like all ready to leave, and they said, well, you can't leave, this guy wants to fight everybody. And we're like, okay, well, I guess we'll wait. And then we waited like 15 minutes, and then they were like, all right, nobody can leave because he's outside, he won't leave. Like, so they were like, we're gonna call the police, or so finally like half an hour goes by, and they're like, all right, well, I think it's clear, but just watch your back. I was like, watch my back? Like, I'm not a Navy SEAL. Like, what do I have to walk to the hotel. So the whole time I just walked to the hotel, like looking around.
Wow.
I mean, not that he was a big guy, but it's just like, you're not expecting to leave work and somebody wants to
Yeah.
fight you. you
Well,
know.
it's funny because now that you mention that, I think I did a show. I don't know if it was in Raleigh. It might have been a different part of like North Carolina or South Carolina, but I think I saw like an almost fight happen once when I was like just checking in for a hotel before a show, and there was like this guy threatening to shoot this other guy because like he was like being really he was kind of being annoying with the check-in, but then I was like, oh wow, this I'm afraid this guy's gonna like shoot everyone, and
Right.
I don't know. I
Yeah,
also saw. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just as a comic, you're like, "Oh, God, if he shoots everybody, like, who's gonna tell the club? Like, the last thing I want is the club to think I ran late. You know, like
Yeah,
somebody just has to call them. What were you gonna say?
yeah, I know. I always I'm like, yeah, this is really gonna affect my show tonight if I'm limping from being shot. But yeah, there I saw I think a fight from a heckler one time that was like maybe a few years ago in my hometown. I was doing a show. It was like barely a show. It was like a just kind of like a thrown together show in like the back of this dive bar and stuff. But it was like a cool space for comedy, and everyone was just like doing new stuff and kind of. I think it was like a free show, but there was this one lady who was like kind of like talking and stuff, and this other lady asked her to like stop talking, and then after the show, the lady that had been heckling like I think like threw a drink at her, and then they were like kind of pulling each other's hair and stuff, and there like one of her friends was like shoving this other guy out of the way who was like trying to break up the fight, and it became this like whole thing because someone had asked her to like stop talking during the comedy show, and it got like really intense. I think she and her friend just got kicked out of the bar, but it was like yeah, it was pretty crazy to see someone so upset basically because someone asked them to stop talking during a comedy show.
Right. It's like such a weird reason to be upset. Like, hey, could you not do the one thing you're not supposed to do? Could you not do that? And then they get extremely defensive.
Yeah,
It's nuts.
and before that, I think I'd kind of like had a crush on that heckler lady who I'd only seen that night, but I was like, oh, she seems. And then after that, I was like, all right, this probably isn't gonna
I
work
don't
out.
think
I
it's
mean,
gonna work.
I was like, she just seemed very passionate, which is cool, but I guess this probably isn't gonna work. Um, anyway.
Oh my God. Before we get out of here, I gotta know. I like to ask every comic this. What is your post bomb vice or comfort thing? Like, is it food? Is it drink? Is it a show? Like, what is the thing that when you bomb, is there something that you go to immediately, calling a certain comic or a friend or that you always do?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, I feel like I have to do a post bomb thing almost every night, but because my shows are not going well. No, but no, I don't. That's yeah, I don't know. I do definitely have a lot of things like that. I don't know if I necessarily strictly use them after a bomb, but or if they help, but yeah, I think it does help to have like kind of an unwinding routine. So I think all of those things help. I like calling a friend from college or a comedian friend to like talk about a show going horribly wrong. It's always like fun to be able to laugh about it once it's over. Or yeah, and I do try to like think about other stuff outside of comedy, which I think about most of the time. And so just like yeah, watching a show, watching a movie, reading, going on walks, writing about something. If a show did go horribly wrong, I think it's like cathartic to like go into storytelling mode and like write it down or tell someone about it. So um yeah, and then I mean I probably like eat sugar and desserts more than I'd like to, so that might trigger that
Yeah.
possibly. But yeah, I think yeah, just talking about it afterwards can definitely be really cathartic. And yeah, and then I mean I ended up getting a few minutes of material on my album about like shows that went wrong, so I'm hoping I'll have more go wrong that I can use for the next album and stories on there. But
Yeah, that's good. That's like the comics that are like, maybe we should have a kid so I can get some new material.
yeah,
It's always good to know that you can at least get a bit out of a bad show. Like if nothing else, this will be a bit, and it'll be
yeah.
worth it then. You talked about the album. I would love tell people about the album. It's out now.
Oh yeah, my new album, Unemotional Roller Coaster, it's out now. I think it's on Pandora for free. There's like a link on my social media and stuff where you can hear it for free, all the way through on there. And it's also on things like Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music. You can leave reviews on iTunes and Amazon Music for free, and if you want to leave a quick review. Uh, but uh, but yeah, so yeah, I'm really happy with it. I think on Patreon I have like the comedy special version, which was shot with a few camera angles we cut together, and some other like material that was cut out is on there, and thing behind the scenes stuff on there. But yeah, I'm super happy with how it turned out. It was kind of my first 12 or 13 years of comedy, and my favorite material from that, and taped it last year at New York Comedy Club, which I'm so glad I did before all this stuff happened. And so
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm really happy about it. And now just yeah, trying to work on a new material and stuff. But yeah, I guess I'll be posting on my social media about anything else like that that comes up. I have merch for the album as well now on tpublic.com. But yeah.
Great. Well, tell people where you're going to post it on social media. Tell people where to find you on social media.
So I'm on like Facebook at comedian Jacob Williams, and then on like Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, I'm Mr. Jacob Williams. So I'll be posting like some videos of comedy and jokes here and there, and then letting people know about shows on there. So yeah, so please say hi to me on there, and yeah, thanks.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for your time, man. Thank you for doing this. It was a real pleasure, and it was great to hear your side of that story from Carmen. I appreciate that.
Yeah, this was so fun, and there's so many stories I didn't get to that are gonna haunt me the rest of my life. But no, this was so fun to talk about. I'm so glad I did this. And
Oh,
yeah, thanks for having me.
good. Of course, of course.